Hi everyone, I'm Elaine Quijano. This week, President Trump is expected to become the third U.S. president to be impeached. As a reminder, he's been charged with abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. The House is getting ready for what will be a historic vote on those articles. On Tuesday, the Rules Committee will set parameters for the debate. The full floor vote will then likely take place Wednesday. It's forcing a spotlight on some moderate House Democrats. 31 Democrats represent districts President Trump won in 2016. That includes Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin. She represents a district in the battleground state of Michigan. The freshman lawmaker announced today she plans to vote in favor of impeachment.
I mean, listen, I knew that this controversial decision was going to be controversial when I came out for an inquiry. And we've been hearing from lots of people this whole time, on the phones and when I'm walking down the street. I mean, we knew from the beginning that this was going to be a tough call. But, you have to do what you're trained to do.
In an op-ed, Slotkin said she's been told this could mean the end of her, quote, short political career. Her decision comes after the House Judiciary Committee formally introduced its case against the president. In a nearly 700-page report Sunday, Democrats argued Mr. Trump, quote, betrayed the nation by abusing his high office. It's all expected to lead to a Senate trial in January. Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is outlining a number of his requests for that, including asking for several subpoenas to be issued. They pertain to senior Trump officials who did not testify in the House inquiry, like acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney and former National Security Advisor John Bolton.
We believe these witnesses and documents would provide the evidence they're looking for without being dilatory or letting the trial drag on for too long. I haven't seen a single good argument about why these witnesses shouldn't testify or these documents be produced, unless the president has something to hide.
Let's bring in Zeke Miller and Siobhan Hughes. Zeke is a CBSN political contributor and White House reporter for the Associated Press, and Siobhan is a Capitol Hill reporter for the Wall Street Journal. Welcome to you both. Siobhan, what do we know about the other parameters Minority Leader Schumer has laid out?
So besides witnesses, Chuck Schumer is also interested in getting documentation, and he's got a very particular area of focus. It's the nearly $400 million in aid that was withheld from Ukraine. He's training his sites there. The four witnesses themselves, he thinks, would have specific knowledge of that. Don't forget, that's an issue that the Senate itself had weighed in on back in September, and a lot of senators think that they are the reason that aid was eventually released, because the Senate was on the verge of casting a vote to force Trump's hand and force that money to come out.
Well, Zeke, you reported on how the president has devised his own, quote, wish list of witnesses that he'd like to see cross-examined during a Senate trial. Who are they?
Well, that is everyone from Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, Adam Schiff, the House Intelligence Committee chairman, and the intelligence community whistleblower whose complaints really started this whole thing just a few months ago. That's who the president wants. That only happens, though, if the Senate trial gets opened up to taking in testimony up from those witnesses. And Republicans on Capitol Hill think that's a bad idea, because that essentially opens the door to Democrats, like we heard from Chuck Schumer today, trying to call their own witnesses of people whose testimony could be damaging to the president. So that the risk the president's current strategy is taking him, but it remains to be seen whether or not he'll actually follow through with it.
Yeah, well, Zeke, what else do we know about how the White House is preparing?
Well, the White House has been in close contact with Senate Republicans now for the last several weeks, anticipating that this is the direction that the impeachment inquiry was going to go. The president was going to be impeached. There was going to be a trial. They wanted to set the parameters, do some of the outreach with those Senate jurors. And what's clear is that there is a divide in the White House now between the president and the people around him, his lawyers and others. And the White House counsel's office, legislative affairs teams are sort of in lockstep right now with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell in terms of they want to make short and quick, no mess, no fuss, give the president the likely acquittal in the Republican controlled body. The president, though, sort of wants that vindication. He wants to call those witnesses in. He wants a prolonged trial to try to exact as much political penalty for Democrats, and then also he hopes to be acquitted in the Senate. Republicans don't really want to do that. They want to get this thing over with. It remains to be seen if they can win the president over right now.
Yeah, right. That's very much an open question. Well, Siobhan, what happens if Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell are unable to reach an agreement?
Well, in that case, Mitch McConnell controls the floor, so there is a likelihood that he would prevail on a number of counts. The other option, of course, is for hearings to be held in the Senate committees. So the Republicans would have a chance to bring some witnesses in. And then who knows what the House would be up to. For example, one of the wild cards out there is John Bolton, the former national security advisor, who has indicated he may be willing to testify if a court orders him to do so. And a judge is supposed to make that decision at the end of December. So it could be that more new information comes out before the Senate trial begins.
Well, before all of this, we still need the vote to happen. Siobhan, we heard Congresswoman Slotkin before. I know you reported on this. What is the political calculus for these moderates now?
So right now, about 17 of the 31 Democrats from Trump districts have come out and officially said they will vote for articles of impeachment. The calculation is country over my political career. You heard the Congresswoman say that she knew this could cost her her seat. She's not the only person who thinks that. And the hope is simply to get support from the base, really rally that base around you. And after that, peg it all to hell and just hope that you can win next year in spite of whatever the consequences may be.
Well, Siobhan, let's talk about Congressman Jeff Van Drew. The New Jersey Democrat is apparently leaving the party over impeachment to become a Republican. He's facing a re-election campaign. What do we know about his plans?
So we know that he is going to become a Republican. The timing of that is unclear. It's unclear if he's going to meet with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to inform her personally. On Tuesday morning, there's a House Democratic Caucus meeting. It's unclear if he will attend, if he attended, if he would be welcome. There are a lot of very hard feelings towards him. The head of the DCCC, the Democrats' campaign arm, has offered all of his staff who quit a landing spot there until they find new jobs. And so for him, it's a bit of a scramble right now in terms of timing and exact next plans.
Well, sticking with re-election, Zeke, how concerned is Mitch McConnell that impeachment could impact Republican control of the Senate in 2020?
There's certainly some concerns. He has some vulnerable members, Susan Collins in Maine, Cory Gardner in Colorado, Martha McSally in Arizona. Those are some of the target races. And so there's a lot of concern on Mitch McConnell's part, and he's somebody who's always very attuned to the needs of his majority, what it takes for some of those vulnerable members to get over the finish line. And when it comes to the trial, they're all caught between a little bit between a rock and a hard place here, because there is a potential for, if none of these members were vulnerable, that McConnell could have sort of moved to immediately dismiss the articles of impeachment in the Senate. That would not necessarily, the calculus right now is that would not be enough to provide the political air cover for some of these vulnerable Republicans in their Senate races in 2020. But at the same time, a prolonged trial would sort of tie those lawmakers with Washington sort of dysfunction and drama, rather than working on the issues that voters consistently find more important than impeachment. So McConnell wants to get impeachment, wants that trial to sort of last long enough that it appears to be a real substantive and formal trial, and not sort of a show, but also not too long such that these lawmakers are tied up on that. And he wants them to get back to work and focus on the issues that their voters want them to.
Well, someone at the center of impeachment is the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. He confirmed to The New Yorker he wanted to have former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, removed from her post. He said she was, quote, going to make investigations difficult for everybody. Let's listen to some of what President Trump said about Giuliani today.
He's a very great crime fighter. He was probably the greatest crime fighter over the last 50 years, very smart. He was the best mayor in the history of the city of New York. He's a great person who loves our country, and he does this out of love. Believe me, he does it out of love. He sees what goes on. He sees what's happening. He sees all of the hoax that happens when they talk about impeachment hoax or the Russian collusion delusion. And he sees it, and he's a great gentleman, and he was, again, the greatest mayor in the history of New York, and probably the greatest crime fighter in the last 50 years. He knows what he's doing.
So, Zeke, as we learn more, should we expect the president to continue to stand by Giuliani?
It sure sounded like that today. The president was pretty much non-responsive to the substance of that question, which is the nature of his meeting with Rudy Giuliani last Friday. And it seems the president has that personal connection with Mayor Giuliani, is sticking by him despite his other legal trouble separate from his role in this Ukraine matter. So on all those fronts, the president does seem to be sticking by him. What's interesting, though, is that White House officials are playing dumb when it comes to the nature of the president's conversations with Rudy Giuliani of late. He was in the White House on Friday. They're saying they don't know what was discussed. They've tried to stay out of it, in part because they are worried about saving their own bacon. They view White House officials view Rudy Giuliani as a real wild card, and they don't want to have anything to do with him because they worry about the blowback on them.
Well, besides impeachment, Siobhan, there are a lot of other items on the table before the end of the year. A stopgap funding measure for the government runs out this week. What lingering issues still need to be resolved to avoid a shutdown?
There is pretty much nothing left to be resolved. Right now, it's a clerical function. Congress is waiting for that paperwork to be released, to be sent over to the House Rules Committee, and the expectation is that the House will vote tomorrow on that spending bill. So barring some type of unexpected development, we expect the government to be funded through the remainder of the fiscal year.
Okay. All right. Well, Zeke, it also appears that the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement may be hitting some setbacks. What do we know about the timeline for getting the deal in place as of now?
Well, there were some concerns over the weekend raised by Mexican officials regarding labor inspections that were tucked into the U.S. implementation bill. That said, Democrats on Capitol Hill and the White House emphatically today saying they are pretty confident that this bill, the implementation bill for USMCA, will pass this week. It seems both parties want to end this session on a bit of a feel-good note, not on that impeachment vote likely for Wednesday, but then to set up some sort of formal vote Thursday. But there are a lot of unknown question marks around that. Just is that timeline really attainable, given that those bills really haven't been rolled out either? So that's sort of the hope from the White House side, and it seems from Democrats as well, to sort of get that done this week. But there are a few more question marks around that, separate from the government funding bill.
All right, Zeke Miller and Siobhan Hughes, thank you both very much.
Thank you.